So EOL 2, the TED Talk was really interesting to me because it only supported and defended what I've already believed in, which is suspensions aren't good. But I also added on to my knowledge because she said a comment about how we should have, like, children just want to live up to adult expectations. So if we have a negative expectation for our students, they're going to naturally live up to the negative expectations. And so if we always think a student is bad, they're not going to have any hope personally for getting better, so they're just going to continue being bad. Whereas if you have positive expectations for students, they're going to be more likely to be a positive student in your class and work hard and follow your rules and live up to your expectations. So as adults, we should change our thinking and figure out the meaning for a child's misbehavior, because then we can better correct this behavior and understand maybe they weren't doing it in a malice way. For instance, if a student wrote on the back of an important paper that was on your desk, maybe they were just trying to leave you a nice note. So that's why we shouldn't just go straight to suspension really ever. If a student acts up, we should try to figure out why the student did that and then work from there. So once again, this just furthered my idea. Suspension is wrong, and we really need to change our thinking and figure out like how to best correct our students in a positive way. So then I read about DRO. DRO is a user-friendly reinforcement-based intervention to reduce negative behavior. We do this by ignoring the bad behavior and reinforcing for the good behavior, or if the bad behavior didn't happen in the time you were like studying your class for and analyzing your class for. Differential reinforcement procedures reinforce the desired behavior. So if you didn't talk for 5 minutes and that was the teacher's desired behavior, you would be rewarded. But if you talked, you would not be rewarded, but you also wouldn't be corrected and yelled at for that. So reinforcement is always good with children with disability. It's arguably the best solution and best way to get the desired outcome. So the only negative is the time requirement, which I read a little bit about just because it is a process. So figuring out the inter-response time has been proven to be a significant factor in the effectiveness of DRO. The inter-response time is basically time divided by occurrence of behavior. So researchers have found that DRO schedules are most effective when the initial interval is set for a small amount. So let's say you want to start for 2 minutes, which might be realistic for a kindergarten class, and then gradually lengthening the interval size. So in conclusion, DRO is an evidence and reinforcement-based intervention that ignores challenging behaviors while reinforcing the more acceptable behaviors. So there are multiple ways I learned that could make the implementation of DRO more easy for both the staff and the students alike. So you can collect data at a defined time each day, for instance, maybe 9 a.m. during morning meeting. And so it kind of becomes a routine if you're doing it at the same time each day. When beginning an activity or work session, offer a choice of reinforcers. Maybe it could be an M&M, or maybe extra reading time, or maybe some coloring time. So then we should also use scripted verbiage and keep the timer directly in front of the students, and use timers students can comprehend. A lot of students can't read just like the normal clock nowadays, so maybe we should do a digital clock or some other clock that students are able to interpret, or you can just simply teach the students to learn and understand the clock. And then finally, I think it's important for us to celebrate our students and make reinforcement genuine, sincere, and just actually celebrate, and don't make it some little thing. But then we gradually need to offer more natural reinforcement, because we can't obviously reward a student with an M&M every time or like every 5 minutes. So it could be like a smile or a clap or saying good job, I'm proud of you. So when you're working with other staff, you can hold meetings on a frequent basis. This will help make the DRO more effective. And yeah. So now I'm going to talk about another way to help your students' behaviors. And this is a teacher's and it's guide to using a multiple schedule of reinforcement in educational settings. So it's important that we're learning about this too, because problem behaviors are major leads to teacher burnout. So if we figure out how to correct behaviors in an effective manner, we'll be more successful. So problem behaviors can obviously take um, forms in a variety of ways. They can be more severe or like non-severe, such as just distracting students during class by repeatedly raising your hand. And then maybe the more severe ones would be injuring yourself or injuring others or throwing big tantrums. So when teaching, so basically I would personally believe that non-severe problems and behaviors are best fit with this message. So basically, we are teaching individuals appropriate response times in multiple situations. So we're not trying to eliminate behaviors, for instance, raising a hand from a student's repertoire, but we're rather trying to show students when this behavior is acceptable, because when we're in story time, we might not want our students raising their hand repeatedly, and half the time it's like might be off topic stuff. So we're going to come up with 2 cues or signals so students know when they can raise their hand and when they can't raise their hand. So it might be, if the red paper's up, that means students just need to sit quietly, not interact with the teacher. They can obviously interact and listen to the teacher, but they shouldn't be raising their hand and asking questions. But then maybe when the yellow paper's up, they're allowed to ask questions to the teacher and raise their hand. So basically, the papers would signal when the attention was available from the teacher. So that's the reinforcement, and then the red would be when it's not available. The raising hand option isn't available, so that would be extinction. Results showed that multiple schedule is effective at maintaining requests at appropriate rates during reinforcement component, while decreasing requests when the extinction component was effective. So multiple schedules generally are more effective with skills that were already known, although multiple schedules can be used in newly taught skills. So yeah, and that's like what I learned about that. And I honestly really like the multi-schedule reinforcement. And you can make it fun too by wearing leis or a hat. So maybe the purple hat, you can't raise your hand, whereas the yellow hat, you can raise your hand. So I really think this would help decrease problem behaviors and disruptive behaviors in a positive manner, because we're not trying to extinct certain behaviors, such as the raising the hand thing, because it's obviously still good, but raising your hand during the wrong times is not good. So I did actually have a lot of takeaways from this week's EOL that I plan on using to help my students to manage their behaviors in effective manners, rather than just going straight to punishment and other aspects to make their behavior stop, because as we have learned, those are not effective.